What is up? This is JB with Old Town Cards. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. This is another episode of Just Another Card Show. So today I have Phil Hughes, former pitcher in the majors, World Series champ, and current puller of cards on his channel, Phil's Pulls. Phil, thanks for joining me today.
What's up, man? How are you?
Doing all right. Enjoying my Friday before the long, or I guess it's Thursday. It feels like Friday before the long weekend.
About like an hour for you, right? You can
Yeah.
officially here
Hey,
in the
man,
holiday weekend. Yeah.
I'll make time for you to come on. So I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you working with my schedule. I got a 7-month-old at home, so most of the daytime hours are pretty tied up with him and all the card stuff. So I'm glad we can make time for this.
So if we hear a little racket in the background, we'll know what
Exactly.
it is.
Yeah, it's his bedtime, so fingers crossed. But we'll see.
All right. Well, I want to start. So I put out some questions, or I put out some feelers on some questions for things that people wanted to hear about from you. And one of them is a place where you can give some insight to us non-pro athletes that we're always kind of curious about. The behind the scenes of, pro athletes when it comes to cards. And, I'm sure it's crazier now than even when you played, with the sheer amount of products that come out, and especially with all the autos. So let's use just as an example, a guy like Tatis, who's kind of, in demand. What, from your knowledge, does it look like for a guy like him on a yearly basis to sign autos for his cards in different sets for different companies? Can you give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on what it's like to be a player dealing with cards? Do you do it all in one sitting? Do they send them to you? What is that process like?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all the dealings with the card companies for autographs basically go through your agent. So Topps reaches out, basically has like a, I guess, unofficial deal that every player will sign. Some guys are, adamant about it. You see guys like Barry Bonds that hardly signed anything during their careers. He wasn't a part of the union, things like that. But 99.999% of the time, guys are kind of have like a deal with Topps. Like their agents are like, okay, we'll make sure we can get this guy to sign. That's why you basically see every big rookie and everything. Any star that you want is basically in everything.
Yeah.
And all those negotiations basically go through the agent. And then basically Tatis's agent, for example, will say, hey, you've got these cards coming for Topps. They need them by a certain date. And then, they'll sign them and send them back. And it was actually funny because I did a signing for Topps a couple weeks ago. And people were surprised that there's not someone in person watching you sign the cards. Because I guess in the language on the back, basically it says, an agent or a representative, from Topps, witnessed this, signing or whatever. And I think there was actually a thread on Blowout basically saying, well, that's complete garbage, obviously. And my take on it is that, a witness has to sign an affidavit. So I think that in those scenarios, Topps is legally, kind of supported by the fact that a representative, based on that legal document, was there watching it. Kind of got sidetracked, but I wanted to bring that up.
No, it's interesting because that's I think one of the things that's interesting to me and to other folks is it seems like there's so many autos, and as a guy who doesn't hardly ever write by hand anymore, it's crazy to me to think. I mean, it must be like part of your routine. Like you lift weights, you you go to practice, you watch film, and you sign cards. I mean, how long does it take? I saw a video, I think, of Acuna's younger brother with like kind of the assembly line, just like auto go. I mean, how much time does it take? I mean, is it are we overblowing it thinking about it, or is it a substantial effort to get that amount of cards signed?
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was a guy that early in my career was a fairly desirable autograph in card sets. So from like 2007 to 2000, or I'm sorry, 2004 to basically 2008, 9ish. I was signing anywhere from probably 6 to 8,000 cards a
Wow.
year, which the first year was actually probably more because I was in Bowman Draft and if you remember, actually, I think they still have this product, Donruss Elite Extra Edition,
Mm,
which is the sticker autos
yeah.
that the base was to like, I want to say the bases were numbered to like 4,000. So you can imagine I probably had, I think, like, 5 or 6 thousand stickers in that
Yeah.
product alone.
And the stickers
And
you
then
just gotta.
you just rattle them off. So it's hard because you see people that are like, oh, these young guys, their autos are trash. And, look at Mariano Rivera. Mariano is in a situation where he's kind of a short print and stuff,
Yeah.
and he's signing maybe 1,000 autographs. That sounds like a lot, but for a younger player, it's nothing. Um, and so he can and he gets paid a lot more per autograph than a younger guy as well. So it's kind of a balance there. If
And
if companies want the young guys to take time and have nice autographs, they almost have to make them scarcer. And I don't think people want that. They want the rush of being able to pull an auto guaranteed 3 in every box, or what have you.
and so if you were doing 8,000 a year in 2006, let's say, I mean, I got to imagine that number is way up now. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, back when so 2004 Bowman Draft was one of the first years that it was like one auto per box, and there was no jumbo. There weren't a lot of parallels. I think there was refractors, X-fractors, and golds and reds, which were the 101. There wasn't supers yet.
Mm.
And you can imagine now with just the sheer amount of parallels and the amount of base and the amount of products now that there weren't back then. I'd imagine top draft
15.
picks are signing, upwards of 15, 20,000 autographs in their first year. And then that tapers off as, the second year products come out. But guys like Adley are still signing after Bowman Draft.
Yep.
They're still in some of these products. And then once they're like rookies, that number shoots way back up again because they have to be in, basically every product.
And what about financially? How does it work? Are you paid per auto, per card? Do you just have an overarching agreement that's like, you're going to sign this many cards, you're going to get this much money? What does the financial agreement look like there?
Yeah, so it's basically the same thing. Those are all negotiated through your agent, and it kind of just depends on how good you are, basically.
Yeah.
Guys like Mike Trout, they're probably demanding, I would guess, anywhere from $20 to $25 a signature, which is obviously the top. And then I'd imagine,
Which is nuts if you think about it. I mean, $25. I mean, imagine if we're just putting this into card talk. I mean, imagine being handed a blaster every time you write your name. And you
Right.
really only need to write like 2 letters once you.
Yeah. He's shortened it to M squiggle. It's crazy. And that's the reason why, card companies are able to get basically every player they want to sign, because it financially makes sense for them. Like, signing cards is, and I won't say grueling, because grueling is, kind of, I guess, a little dramatic, but it is a process and it takes a long time. And it's something that guys don't want to do generally. For the most part, athletes don't care about sports cards. Like, we can just say it. It's an extra piece of income that they normally wouldn't have, so they do it. But if you don't care about a certain hobby, you're not going to really put the care and the time into it.
Yeah.
So there definitely is a difference between people that I guess understand it and people that just look at it from like this is a paycheck that I'll definitely take. And so it kind of goes like that.
And that's actually one of my questions, is how many other athletes are into cards? Is it a lot? Is it a little? I mean, I imagine that they're always around the clubhouse, like we're talking about and what have you. So what is the general sentiment for athletes around cards, and how many of them are into it even maybe a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some younger guys that are coming up now that maybe have an interest in cards. Back when I was, young in the major leagues, it was very, very rare. I kind of off and on collected through 2007 to 10, which was the first like basically 4 years. And I remember people would reach out because they were like, hey, these card companies would like to do this and this and this. And at the time, I was just so busy, I didn't really see it possible to do that. But
Hmm.
I I think there's going to be more of it. I mean, you've seen now with Josh Donaldson. He's not very like publicly out there that he's into cards, but he has a tremendous collection. He collects a lot of basketball and baseball, and I think you're going to see more of that. I see a lot of guys that follow me on Twitter now that are minor leaguers that are very into cards. So I think it's like I think it's a trend that's taking off a little bit. I don't know how much we'll see of it from players necessarily, but it's definitely something that's not looked at as like a as much of a dorky hobby anymore, I guess.
Right.
and and just with how cool cards are now, you're seeing a lot more people back into it, and I think that's going to have a kind of trickle over effect to players as well.
Yeah, and you were kind of coming out of, in 2004, we're still kind of coming out of where I think a lot of these card companies were refinding their identities after the junk wax era. So I'm curious, how did you get into cards? Is it something that you've been into since you were a kid? Is it something that you picked up after the game to stay busy? What got you in and made you decide this was something that you really wanted to do and to be a part of?
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story. It starts when I was like basically 6 years old, and I opened my first pack of cards, which was 1992 tops. And I've told this story a couple times, but 92 tops is like one of the worst sets ever, value wise. Like it is junk, which is actually a good thing because I used to write my name on the back of every card, thinking that it was kind of like putting my name on my bike. Nobody would steal my cards if my name was on
Uh,
them.
Smart.
Yeah. And thankfully, there's no 89 Griffies and 92 tops.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it kind of started there, and I was always a fan of baseball as a kid, and so I enjoyed collecting cards basically my entire life. And I've gone through times where I haven't collected. Gone through times where I've collected heavy, but it's always been an interest of mine. And fast forward to now, I kind of got to a point where I was I liked cards again. I was getting back into it. Some of the new products were really cool and interesting, and I wanted to get back into it and do it. But I kind of wanted to bring another aspect to it. And I thought, well, there's not a lot of people that are out there as former players or players that are into cards. Maybe I can bring another kind of a viewpoint to this that maybe people will appreciate. And so I started the YouTube thing, and I've had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. That's true love right there. If you basically like the worst set of all time is what got you in.
Right, exactly. Yeah, 92 tops. Look it up. It's awful.
All right. So, a kind of funny or fun question here. Is it weird for you at all to pull cards of guys that you played with or even yourself? I got to imagine it's kind of funny if you're like, oh, hey, there's my buddy, there's my buddy Ben, cool ass dude. What's that like seeing, your friends on cards that you open, seeing your own face? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because you kind of connect a story back to a lot of these cards you see. For instance, cards myself are either action shots from a game that I don't remember or pose shots from spring training photo day, which they use a lot of those, and through from products throughout the year. So it's kind of funny. You're like, oh yeah, this card looks really cool, but in reality, like it was 7 a.m. in spring training on a backfield, and you can kind of remember those moments. But it is kind of funny. I pull a lot of Matt Strom's cards, who's back into it. He collected as a kid, and now is like full on um, back in collecting baseball and basketball. So I'll pull some of his cards, and it's kind of a funny um, moment on a video or whatever. And I usually just send them to him because he's trying to get he's trying to put together rainbows of himself, which I think is hilarious. And so it is fun. It's cool. Obviously, I get that question a lot from people that are like, hey, what's it like having a card of yourself? That's got to be so cool as someone that enjoys cards. and it is pretty neat for sure.
Yeah, I always gotta love when like on eBay you get a purchase and it's like Jim Hughes, and I'm like, that's gotta be Phil's dad or something. Not that your dad's actually Jim, but you see it, you'll get a card bought by a family member or something.
Sure, sure.
Um,
My dad's Phil Hughes, so it'll be
there
pretty
you
easy to tell in that case. But
So
if it's from a Phil Hughes, it's probably me buying it, not my dad.
yeah,
So
I would imagine you'd be pretty easy to identify on eBay. But moving into your collecting, what do you collect? Do you have a PC personal collection, cards that you look specifically for? What is the Phil Hughes collection made up of?
yeah, so I mean, I'm a pretty picky collector, I guess. I see a lot of guys that they'll never sell a card. Like every card they get, they keep, and that's awesome. Selling cards is a huge pain in the ass. So I definitely understand where people are coming from that don't like to sell cards and they collect a lot of different stuff and they like to be in breaks and open boxes themselves. Um, I'm kind of the opposite of that. Like I have a very kind of strict guideline for what I want. Um, Sticker autos bug the hell out of me. I hate them. I don't really go for like relic cards all that often either. I obviously, I collect Tatis. That's pretty much kind of widely known at this point that I,
Yep.
Try to go after his cards pretty heavy. I go for a lot of the rookie card stuff or, um, on card autos of vets that I, either have good stories about or, liked as a player, CC Sabathia being one of them.
Mhm.
So my collection actually is probably less than 500 cards, I would say.
Oh wow.
Um, and everything else is basically, either holding with an intent to sell down the line or it basically gets sold right away.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when you go and open packs, which you do quite a bit of, I mean, I'm sure you have to offload a lot of that. I saw the other day someone giving you a hard time that you're trying to track down cards, but what people don't understand is when you're cracking open that much stuff, you're either in a giant money pit, or you've got to offload some things to be able to continue to fund, especially for you, the opening of all those products.
Sure. Yeah. And I think people get confused sometimes because they just assume that card companies are sending me all this stuff for free. I get a lot of comments when I open a good case of something that, it was loaded up for me by the card company. And it's actually kind of funny because I recently did a Topps 206 video, T206 video. And that was basically one of the rare products that I actually got directly from Topps. And it was horrible.
It's actually the opposite.
Yeah, and most everything else I either get basically how everybody else would buy their cards, online, my local card shop, stuff like that. So it is definitely an expensive hobby, and I get that complaint a lot from people that think that these higher end collectors are somehow boosting the market up. And I think that's true in a sense, but there's also a very wide array of products now. I mean, I almost think there's too many, and there's basically stuff for everybody. But opening cards is definitely very expensive and not making me rich by any means. But I enjoy it. So in the flip side of that is I have to basically offload stuff like you mentioned to kind of offset my costs in that way.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of, pumping the market, and if you told me that you watched my video with Gary, so I want to ask you some similar stuff. What are your thoughts on when you do talk and you talk about guys you like or collect, and it's obviously going to have an implication on the market and the value of that card. Your word goes a long way, which isn't a bad thing, but let's take Hira as an example. You were talking about his cards, and from what it seemed to be all in good fun, you just seem to like Keston Hira, which he's a good baseball player. But especially the Sapphire, those went way up. Intended or not, you have the ability to move the market with your words. And some people think that may be unfair, or I've seen things basically like it's insider trading, that you can pick up a card, pump it up and then it goes up because of the pull that you have. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, with your word, you can increase market on things that you have a vested interest in.
Yeah, it's a tricky question. And I know that we had this discussion. I think the first time you brought it up was actually a video on your Twitter, and I responded because it is a tricky spot. I think that, as a collector myself, as someone that truly enjoys the hobby, I wouldn't want to do this if I couldn't talk about cards. If I couldn't have an honest conversation on Twitter, on social media, with other people that collect about who I like and who I'm picking up and who I think is undervalued. I mean, to me, a lot of that is the joy of this for me. There's some people that don't collect cards for, the interactions. They just, they do it for themselves, and they're, kind of private, and they don't have social media. And there are people that enjoy that, and that's great. But for me, I enjoy watching, how cards fluctuate based on, scarcity, based on how a player is performing. That kind of stuff really interests me, and I want to share that with people. And I want to get, other people's input on stuff like that as well, because I think that's part of collecting. That's part of the hobby, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I probably wouldn't be doing it if I couldn't speak honestly about something. And the other point that I brought up in that first conversation we had was, if I just happened to hit, a ton of a player and it was not going for that much, and I was like, gosh, this guy sucks, I don't really want these cards. But if I go on Twitter and talk him up, maybe I can sell him for more than I did. That's scummy. Like, that's obviously, me trying to manipulate something that I don't believe in. But if I genuinely, think a card is undervalued, I think I, can talk about it. And with the Keston Sapphire, for example, that card was trading at like 40 to 50 bucks when I brought it up on Twitter. I thought it was a shame because Tatis was like 500 at that point. I don't think Keston's, a long ways behind, some of those top 4 guys. And it shot up, and that wasn't my intention when I tweeted about it. But if it was, I wish I would have bought 100 more before, before I said anything. But it's, and I think Gary kind of hit the same point. It's like, if you really enjoy cards, it's almost unfair in a way that because we have a following, and mine's not nearly as big as his, but why can't we talk about that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And I think you brought up the Acuna card, and he kind of said, well, that's the last time I'm ever going to put a number on something because, it kind of backfired a little bit. So
yeah, because it touched that number literally like on the dot before it started to come back.
And then it goes down because, people are like, well, Gary Vee said that's its ceiling.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to dump them and, all that stuff. So
question on that front. Well, I guess not question, but just a comment here. I think what's interesting about it, and I think why there's as much, kind of, we're almost like self-policing, right? Because, if you talk about things like stocks, and I don't say that cards are stocks. I mean, I think that they are a hobby.
I do.
Fun. You do. And I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. But with stocks, there's the SEC, and there's a lot of people watching over that. And in the card hobby, look, you have come on here, and I'm going to, believe your word, just like I believe Gary. I don't think that there's ever malintent. And I don't think that I think you guys have done much more positives than negatives. But it's like who's to say when the guy who has the big following doesn't come out and do exactly what you said, which is has a bunch of a card that isn't that good, that they don't believe in, but they want to offload it, and they're just making change that way. And I think that because there's no overarching body that's watching out for the hobby, it's almost like the hobbyists have no choice but to do it themselves.
Sure. And what I'll say to that point is, if you're somebody that, first of all, I don't know. I mean, I played baseball. I don't know if anybody's going to be good or bad or whatever. I mean, obviously guys, can look good on paper. They can look great in the minor leagues, what have you. But if you're buying cards based on what I say or anybody else, you're stupid. There's no, like, I don't have, a crystal ball that's going to tell me what prospects are going to be good. There's
Yeah.
guys I like, and if you put value into that, so be it. But if you're scooping up a bunch of cards based on what anybody else says, I mean, it's just, that's not going to work out. So as someone that collects, I would say stay away from anybody that's telling you that a card's going to shoot up. I mean, grain of salt with everything. And for me, I just thought that Keston's card was way too cheap for how good of a player he is, and that's why I said it. But and your point about somebody coming in that could have a big following and
Wants to take advantage, I
pumping a
guess.
card
Yeah.
up, because they have a following and they don't really believe in it. It's a tricky situation. Is it insider trading? I mean, insider trading, I would probably say, is like, somebody says, hey, this guy's hurt and nobody knows about it yet, dump his cards, rather than speculation. But
Mhm.
it is a tricky thing. I mean, I don't know the answer. There's a lot of people that have malintent in cards. I run across it every day. You see scammer threads and, all sorts of crazy stuff. Um,
Yep.
so it's not to say that somebody could come in and say, dump this guy, pump this guy, and not be genuine about it. But uh, I don't know the answer, and that's why
Yeah.
it's good to have these conversations, because it kind of gives everybody a little bit of perspective that not everyone's out there to rip you off, not everybody is out there to pump their cards up to sell them, but at the same time that could be the case. Nobody really knows.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think a lot of the conversation is just around that is, understanding that a lot of us are here to have fun, but also, there isn't somebody who's looking out necessarily over the hobby. So just always trying to be, cognizant of what can happen. I mean, I see it on Twitter all the time. People, these scammers, they just continually create new profiles, and there's nobody who's looking out other than, maybe some forums, and then just guys saying, hey, I found this guy again, make sure you block him, he's out to get people again. And I think it's
Sure.
just up to us to continue to kind of self-police and make sure that people are in it for the right reasons, and having conversations. You, Gary, I mean, you guys are collectors and enjoy this stuff, so I think it's fantastic, and it's important that we kind of point the fingers at the right people, and also prop up the people who are doing really good things for the hobby. So I appreciate that a lot.
And that's where the kind of the dangerous part comes too, is you talk about self-policing. Anytime you have self-policing, you have these vigilantes that are out there thinking that they're the overseeing force of the hobby, and start pointing false accusations, and that's where a lot of this slander about myself or Gary or whoever kind of comes from. So, and that's where it's like, well, what do you do about it? Like, what's the answer? You just accusing somebody of something without really knowing them or having a conversation with them is dangerous. And at the same time, like, somebody coming in and scamming the hobby essentially is dangerous as well. So I think it's important that people kind of don't jump to conclusions, I guess, kind of, see things as they are for a minute, and then, kind of make their decisions from there. If somebody all of a sudden is very interested in cards that never really was before and is saying a lot of things, that may be a red flag
Yep.
to look at. But, um, for
Communication, my
someone like
friend. That's why
yeah,
we're here. I think
yeah,
it's just one of those things I've been here, and you saw the video, whatever it was, 8 months ago. I was just sitting there curious about the power that was there, and it's awesome to be able to have these conversations instead of any sort of speculation, and be like, Phil, what do you think about, kind of the power of your word, and hearing from you, like, look, man, it's complicated. Gary said the same thing. It's complicated, and, just good conversations to have.
yeah. And I wouldn't be, like I said before, like, this wouldn't be as fun to me if I couldn't talk about cards. I mean, I can't just sit and buy, boxes 24 hours a day. Even with the amount of money I made in baseball, I'd go broke doing that. But I can, communicate with my friends that collect, and, people that I've, normally would never meet in my life, that I've met through cards, and have conversations with them about it. it is like a community in a way. And I don't think that, that's a big part of collecting to me. And I don't want that to go away just because what I say might be taken as a financial push.
Yeah. And I think it's that way for a lot of people. It's as much fun collecting as it is fun interacting in the community. I mean, just I wouldn't be able to survive just having my collection of cards. What am I do? I'm just going to roll around on the ground with like a few PSA 10s and be happy about it. No,
Right.
I want to take a picture of it and be like, here's my Soto collection. Here's what I've been doing. And you
Sure.
guys are just guys who want to do the same thing. Unfortunately, you've got 45,000 subscribers to your YouTube channel, 200,000 on Twitter. And so, your word goes a little bit further. And so, it's just you're going to get a little more heat, I guess, when things happen.
Yeah, it's almost like that. You see influencers on social media, and I wouldn't call myself an influencer by any means, but a lot of times when it's a paid advertisement, they have to put #ad in
Yep.
front of it. And I almost feel like maybe from now on, I'll just put #don't believe me or something before I start talking about cards.
Please do not buy this card just because I'm saying it. It's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, exactly. Like I wanted some Bruhans the other day because I saw that he made the Rays kind of practice roster or whatever, and people were like, "Oh, great! I got outbid on a bunch of these now," and it's like, I was just trying to avoid some eBay fees. Like I didn't mean it as a, as pumping this guy up, but what are you going to do?
And on that note of ads, I am curious. People have a lot of questions, and you mentioned it earlier about your ins with different companies. So I do want to just ask a couple of questions here so that you can give your unfiltered response to that. So first off, I want to ask you about, you've been talking a little bit about StockX. And I think you've been pretty transparent about it, but we'll start there. Can you tell us a little bit about StockX, what it is, I guess, first off, so that we get some context, and then what's your relationship with them?
Yeah, so StockX reached out to me probably 6 months ago, maybe 6-8 months ago, and had an interest in working with me through my influence on YouTube with cards, and their kind of starting up their trading card aspect. Maybe not starting it up, but revving it up to another level. And I saw it as a great opportunity. I mean, I look at I buy cards on eBay a lot. I don't love that platform, to be honest with you. It obviously has. It's the best place
Why
to
not?
buy.
Tell me why not. I'm actually going to get to that. You don't need to elaborate
Yeah.
on it too much now. I've got a couple questions for you about Topps and Project 2020, and then about what's gone on eBay. So we'll get to that.
Right.
But StockX itself, go ahead.
Yeah. So I buy a ton on eBay. It is what it is. You can get the most cards. There's the most eyeballs on it. It's a flawed system, but unfortunately we're kind of, pigeonholed into using it. And I don't think that has to be, the permanent way that it is. I look at cards like stocks, like we talked about earlier. I think they're commodities. I think that, each one has a certain value, and it's important to be able to see that value very upfront. You look at sold listings on eBay and you have to, guess what a best offer is or go to a third party website to figure it out. On StockX, you see, and this sounds like an ad because I say this on my videos, but you see, sales reports and what people are buying them for and history of, what they've been selling at. And, it's just a clear, transparent way of
What
doing it. And I
gets
know a lot
sold
of,
on there? Is it just? I'm actually just learning about it. I think you saw I put out a poll on it. Is it just? I think my understanding is it's just graded cards, wax, and Project 2020 at this point.
correct. Yeah. Just singles. And they're either PSA or BGS graded. Because StockX essentially is playing the middleman, and they don't want to become a grading service. They don't want to get raw cards and be like, ooh, this card maybe has more damage than the picture showed. You can imagine their position in that being very tricky.
Yeah.
So they only deal with PSA and BGS being the top basically two grading services, and they don't have to worry about it. and then wax, which, with modern stuff is fairly easy to see its authenticity with its seal and things like that. So that's kind of what they're doing now, and that's one of the knocks on it, is that there's not a lot of things.
Yeah.
They're adding to their portfolio every day. But you imagine it's one or two guys, seeing what cards are hot and putting in, basically one at a time, everything that they need to get that platform going. And I think it's got potential, but it's it's just starting off. And it kind of has its baggage from the shoe game and things like that, where there were some fake shoes being sold that StockX couldn't catch, and now people associate that with cards and being shady and fees and all that stuff. And I think it's a little unfair. Like, I think that people should just look at it for what it is for cards, and give it a try and see if you like it. And I've actually had messages from people that are selling on StockX now, and love it. They don't have to deal with messages from buyers and, oh, can you show me this and that, and there's no, it's just simple. And hopefully, even if it's not, even if it doesn't turn into like the biggest trading card platform, at least it maybe gave some people ideas on how it should go.
Maybe they can send some of their employees over to PSA to help them to grade some of my 500 cards that are sitting in boxes.
Yeah.
And so what's your relationship with StockX then? I guess, are you like a brand ambassador, or what's your role there?
Yeah, I don't really have a title. I am partnered with them. We initially decided that we would do, I think it was 2 videos, and and that was after I had some time to kind of look over what they're doing, and I felt like it was something I could get behind, and especially after hearing so many complaints from people about selling cards in other ways. So yeah, I signed on for 2 videos, and they were very happy with the outcome of those. So we decided to do 6 more, and that 6th video will be going up probably in the next week. And then and it's not like a long-term deal. And I've said this a lot before. It's one of those things, like, I'm not going to just take a check from somebody and not believe in their product. Like,
Yeah.
Basically everything I talk about on my YouTube channel is something I believe in, whether it's, perfect fit sleeves, which, I don't get paid at all by them, but I really believe in their stuff. I try to be as genuine as I can with, a lot of the sponsorship opportunities that I do have. And, yeah, so it's one of those things. I don't think anybody's ever going to be, thrilled when I, try to, kind of monetize my platform. But like we talked about before, breaking boxes is very expensive. And
Yep.
if I can offset some of that cost, it helps me out tremendously.
Well, and with on the authenticity point, just goes back to the players that you're talking about are guys you believe in, whether it's a product or a player or whatever, and you're just using your platform to get your message out there. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I'm upfront and say that I do get paid
Yep.
to support this. I mean, don't take my word for it. Like, go out and see if you enjoy it. Use my discount code. That's an incentive right there to see if it is something that you like the process of. And I've heard mixed results. I've heard people that love it. I've heard people that don't necessarily love the fees associated, and the shipping can take a little while because it's got to go from the seller to them and then to you. So I just want people to kind of have an incentive to basically try something different and see if you like it. And if you don't, like, I don't care. That's great. Like, at least you tried it, and maybe we can have a conversation about something that would work better in the future.
Cool. And on a note that you had mentioned before, I want to ask the question so that you can put this out there. Topps, what's your relationship there? A, do they pay you? B, do they send you cards or boxes to open and hype on your channel? What's your engagement? And, what does that look like?
I am not associated with Topps in any way. I used to get some boxes here and there sent to me from Topps. It wasn't anything usually, uh, it wasn't anything like enough to make a video on. So typically I would just, get them, rip them. And it was like series one and,
I'm surprised they didn't
heritage and
send you those T206s to try to hype them. I've got 20 of them sitting next to me.
yeah. No, I paid website. I paid $15 a pop for those things. And
Hashtag
yeah,
well
so,
worth it.
I had a conversation with, um, one of the guys that does their autograph stuff, and he was like, "Hey, I really like what you're doing with the YouTube channel. We'd love to get you in a product because I think people are excited about seeing your name again and things that you're doing." So I did a deal for 1,000 autographs with Topps, and besides that, that's really the only affiliation I've had with them. They don't send me product to open on the channel. They don't send me stuff to open as much as people think that they're sending me loaded products. Um, basically, I buy most of my stuff from Blowout. On that subject, you'll see my mat will change in the next few weeks, probably to it'll have Blowout logos where the BCW logos are, as I've they purchased that ad space basically, and so I'll have a deal moving forward with them to get some discounts on products. Um, just to
People
like I
hate
said,
ads in this hobby, man.
yeah, yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
interesting. It's like anything you tie your name to, people want to know if it's fair, if something shady's going on. And again, I think it goes back to there is no body in this environment where there are hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of dollars being exchanged regularly. There's nobody that looks out. And so I think it's just so interesting that you
Yeah,
mentioned that, you basically sold some ad space and people are going to say something.
yeah, of course,
I mean,
always.
it's going to
I
happen.
mean, if you're, if this podcast or YouTube channel takes off and somebody wants to offer you, money to wear their hat or their shirt or talk about their company online, if it makes sense, of course you're going to do it. That's capitalism. I certainly got into this because I enjoy cards. I never imagined having the opportunity to to have sponsors to offset my costs in doing this. But if that comes along, like, I would be an idiot not to take advantage of
If
an
anybody wants
opportunity
me to wear your
to
hat for a few bucks, I will wear that hat. You
yeah,
let me know.
absolutely. And I would call you an idiot if you didn't take advantage of that, if it ever came about. But
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times in this hobby, and I hate to say the word, but it's almost like jealousy. And especially from the people that have been doing it a long time, and they're maybe not, they're old school. They don't realize the impact that somebody can have from having a YouTube channel or a podcast. And I think a lot of people are doing that now, and good for them if they can make a career out of it. I see a lot of people that are quitting their full-time jobs to be full-time breakers on YouTube, and that's amazing. Like, what a cool opportunity that you get to work in a hobby that you enjoy. Like, that's everybody's dream. And I just hate seeing people tearing that down because they're like, "Oh, you're getting paid." It's like, yeah, stuff costs money. Like, that's just a reality. And I think it's awesome that people can make cards their full time gig. And but unfortunately, some people are just always going to have the negative lens on.
Yeah, man, for sure. And sometimes Twitter and the YouTube comments can be a tough place.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I thought Twitter was bad, and then I started a YouTube channel, and that is like a whole other level of crazy. I should make like a daily. I'll post screenshots of some of them on Twitter, but I mean, I could almost make like a daily post about just the most absurd YouTube comments you'll ever see, and it's either stuff is absolute trash or it was loaded for me. It's like, I don't, if I have a bad box, it's the worst product ever. If I have a good box, it was sent to me direct from Topps. It's like, I can't I can't win without somebody having something negative to
Well,
say.
you keep looking at those view numbers and the subscriber numbers, and I think it tells a different story. But I do want to ask you about something different that you had brought up earlier, and it's the eBay returns that has become a mainstay since Project 2020. In my opinion, it has been an absolute disaster from the eBay resale side of things, because basically someone can buy a card at a price and see if it goes up. And if it goes up, they can flip it or they can hold it. And if it doesn't and it tanks, they can just return it, which is completely unfair to the seller. It would be like, and you were talking about stocks, but it would be like if you could buy a stock and if that stock doesn't appreciate or go up, you could just go back to E-Trade and say, I'll try a different one. So, obviously cards aren't stocks, but they can be related to them. And in your opinion, it sounds like you think they're very similar. What are your thoughts on eBay's return policy and how, as a hobby, we can try and right the ship there? Because I do see it having a long-term negative impact if returns become a normalized thing.
Right. And, so first off, I don't think anybody ever envisioned Project 2020 turning into, a series of cards where things like that would happen. I don't think, Top certainly didn't have the intent of, making these cards that would be so volatile with print runs and, all these other sort of things. Do I think it was a mistake that they just sold as many as they could sell?
I bet
I don't
they
think that was the
dreamed it would
smartest thing.
be. Yeah, I bet they dreamed it would be as
Yeah.
big as it is. They
Yeah.
probably never thought in a million years that they'd sell 99,000 Griffey Shores.
Right. Yeah. I think it was a mistake for them to print as many as they could sell. I think each card should have been limited to, 1,000, 5,000, whatever. But that being, aside, I think that and eBay always, will back the buyer. And, it's unfortunate, but you look at eBay
But real
an
quick,
e-commerce site.
there's backing the buyer and then there's screwing the seller. And I think
Sure.
we've gone more if we're saying eBay was in the middle leaning towards the buyer and trying to protect them, I think we've gotten to a place of actively screwing the seller where you sell something for X dollars, that was its value at the time, it gets returned to you. Not only did you get it returned, but you also lost $200. And now
Right.
the thing that's returned to you, you sold it for $260 and now it's worth $60. And that's kind of messed up, or very messed up in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you 1,000%. As somebody that would never buy a card and then return it because it didn't go up or it went way down, I've been on the other side of that, multiple times. Bowman First Edition, for example, I was fortunate enough to get some boxes on release, and I knew Jason was going to be, super hot when it came out. So I broke a bunch of boxes and immediately sold as many Jasons as I could. And I had probably half of those sales, never get paid for. And not to say that that's necessarily the same thing as the Project 2020, because prices kind of went down to where they should have been.
It's similar. Someone
Yeah.
claimed it or bought it or whatever with the intention, and they weren't going to pay until they saw what the actual value is. And I think people aren't being held accountable for their actions. It's similar to the McCutcheon card. And I was sitting there laughing about it the whole time. I'm like, this traditionally is a $10 card. Now, could it be worth like 50 because it's cool? Sure. But people getting hyped up about it selling for $250, the buyers aren't being held accountable to that $250 that they say they're willing to pay. They can just change their mind when it goes down. So it's not really like it's sold for $250 until that timer goes up.
Right. And yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I'm agreeing with you. Like there is, I think buyers on the sports card market absolutely need to be held accountable for every bid they place, every buy it now they submit. That needs to be a legal, I say legally, that needs to be a pending purchase.
Yeah.
A binding purchase. And, I get messages all the time, and it's unfortunate because I basically have to sell on eBay to reach the amount of eyeballs that I need to sell cards for top dollar. And I don't know how much selling you do on eBay, but the messages there are just crazy. My cat click buy it now accidentally.
Oh, you've seen them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
Everyone's
And
son has access to their eBay account. It's
yep,
amazing.
yeah, no, it's truly it's it's wild. And just to play devil's advocate, like eBay is not a trading card site; it's an e-commerce site, and they're backing the buyer because of all the things that could go wrong with trying to negotiate, sales on a website. Um, and I almost think that, eBay kind of needs to maybe set a different standard for trading cards.
Like segment it and have your
Yeah, like make a
cards
team
or
that's dedicated to the card department, because it's a different animal. It's not like selling, a sweatshirt or a pair of shoes or, things that kind of have a set value and they're not really going to fluctuate. I mean, they're kind of selling stocks in a way and treating it like they're selling potato chips. And, there's ways to get around, the rules in that. And it's unfortunate, like we talked about, there are people looking to scam and looking to take advantage. And unfortunately, like you said, a lot of sellers are forced into using eBay, and it's an imperfect system. And hopefully that changes. And that's why I thought StockX, would be something helpful just for people to see that there are options. You
yeah.
don't have to get suckered into using something that's not great just because it's the only option.
And it's going to be interesting because I feel like there's always been that ability to return on eBay, but Project 2020 has magnified it by more than I've ever seen in anything. And I've sold players who had a breakout and I've been worried about it. I sold a Mike Tauchman out of 50 and I was worried that if this guy doesn't stay hot, I could get a return maybe. But it was like a rare thing where if it happened, you were like, okay, scumbag. Now it's like you sell a card when it's peaking, which you should be excited about. You should be like, man, I bought these cards. I held on to this rookie. He broke out. Now I'm going to sell after he had a big game. Go me. Instead, it's like I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to sell after he had a big game and hold my breath for 30 days.
Hope I get paid. Yeah.
Yeah, hope I get paid, hope that I don't get a return or whatever. So it'll be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see. I mean, I'm sure the CS department, the customer service department at eBay is raising some red flags to upper management saying, you guys, we got to do something about this because I am sick of getting torched and having to run investigations. I mean, there are a lot of people who aren't just backing down and taking the return. I got one return and I just did it because I didn't feel like dealing with it.
Right.
But other than that, there are people out there who are fighting diligently until the last breath to at least give it, a run for its money before they just let it go. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, good insight there on eBay. Just a couple of more questions here. Since I have you, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Of course, man.
This one is about the whole investor versus collector conversation. Personally, to me, it doesn't matter. Investor, collector, gambler, breaker, flipper, whatever it may be. I think that there is a place for everyone in the hobby, but it's a conversation that I'm seeing pretty much daily. And I'm curious about your opinion. What do you think is the difference between investor versus collector? And I guess, what do you classify yourself as?
Yeah. I was basically just going to say what you said. Like, I think there's a place for everybody, and I don't really define myself as either. Like, I'm kind of right in the middle. Like, I really enjoy cards. I collect cards. There is not a single card in my collection that you could give me like a blow me away number, and I wouldn't sell it to you. Um, I look at every card as replaceable. I think that, there's a lot of cards that I really like, but at the end of the day, like, I want to make some money so I can buy more cards. Like, that's, if I just buy cards and collect cards, eventually I'm going to get to the point where either I run out of space in the garage, which is where I am now, which is the only place that my wife will allow me to have baseball cards, and, I'll either run out of space and have to stop, or I'll run out of money and have to stop. So I'm always looking at a way out with cards. I collect guys that I think are good players. Um, I have a buddy that is a Troy Gloss super collector. He does it because he loves Troy Gloss. It was his favorite player growing up. He knows he's never going to sell these cards for anything, but he just wants to put together a really cool collection. I know people that are into putting rainbows together, into set collecting, into all sorts of different stuff. And I don't think there's any wrong way of doing it. And I hate seeing people on, Twitter or YouTube comments that are like, "Oh, you're not a real collector. You're just doing this or doing that." Like, just let people live, like, be happy that people are interested in cards again. And I think it's made for a really thriving hobby. I think that it's got a lot of people back interested in it. You're seeing, I did interviews for, Forbes, The Athletic, uh, you know, places that haven't written about trading cards in decades, and all of a sudden it's cool again. And people, I don't know if they're threatened by it, if it's just kind of a change to the norm. Um, but I think the more people that are involved, the merrier. And it's not like Topps is going to stop making new stuff to make enough cards for everybody, because the more people that come in, the more cards they're going to make. And yeah, so kind of off topic there, but I would view myself as a collector investor, and uh,
Strong
I think
stance
that,
there, Phil.
yeah, I certainly love the investing standpoint, the investing aspect of cards, but I also like cards for what they are. Like, I can't imagine the number that it would take to make me move my Tatis Sapphire Superfractor Auto, but there probably is a number, and that's the business side,
And you're
in
hoping
me.
that number keeps going up.
Yeah,
Stay healthy
exactly.
this year, Tatis.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And for you, I'm sure it's Juan Soto. Like, do if his cards shoot up another 400-500%, like, would you not offload some of them to, capitalize on your smart collecting?
Of course,
You
I
know,
already have. I mean,
yeah,
you're always trying to hedge here and there. I'm also similar to that, where it's, and I collect Tatis. I collect a lot of different things. I've got a bunch of cards at PSA that some I'll hold because I think it's players who are really good. Some I'll sell because I think that there's more hype there, and it's a way to make some money back to be able to get some other things. And I, like you, I think I enjoy the thrill of ripping open packs, and so that
hmm
needs to be funded some way.
right,
And
because it's a
I didn't
horrible
do
investment.
yeah, and I didn't have a career in Major League Baseball, so I got to figure out ways to continue to make that happen.
No doubt, yeah. And it just drives me crazy when I see people that try to tear other people down, or talk about them not being legitimate, or they've just got back into it. Like, embrace the new people. Like, embrace the people that are coming back in that think cards are cool again. Embrace people that are spending money in the hobby. Like, that is what's fueling its popularity. And I think it's tremendous, but there's always going to be the bad apples that kind of spoil it for everyone. And
But on that note, though, and I have a question for you here. There are some bad apples on the newcomer side, where you have these flippers who have gotten very, very good at breaking into sites. So what are your views on the whole bot Topps website crash,
yeah,
flippers having 10 boxes on eBay within an hour, and having receipts of purchases from Topps website, when guys like myself, I don't have a bot. I tried. I got on the website just like everybody else, and I kept clicking add to cart, and then I got called a bot, and I'm not a bot. I don't know how to get a bot. I've never had a bot. So I think that situation creates a little bit of vitriol of like, screw the new guys who are coming in and taking advantage of guys like me who, look, man, I'll pay the 150 Topps. I will. And I deserve a Bowman Sapphire box, just one. I don't need 10. Just want to rip one open. It would be exciting. But no, instead, guy with a bot got 12 of them because he came in with 12 different accounts and hacked the site, and I got kicked out for 3 hours. So
Right.
what do you think about that? And I think that that causes a lot of the frustration sometimes, instead of just like, you know, old man yells at cloud. I think that's some of it, but I think some of the other stuff is like, hey man, we're just here to have some fun, and you guys are coming in here and just taking advantage of everything.
Right. Well, I don't think that the blame needs to be put on the people using the bots. Like, if I can barely figure out how to use Zoom, if I knew how to use a bot,
True
I'd
story,
use
by
it.
the way. This is
I'd use the hell out of a bot. Like, whatever. Like, if I could get boxes that I knew I could flip and make some money, like, that's capitalism. There's nothing illegal about it. Topps needs to fix their website. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Panini needs to fix their website. You know, Topps is used. You know, they put out Bowman First Edition. It's an absolute disaster. They really don't make any changes and then just throw out Bowman Sapphire like it's going to be any different. Oh, we're limiting it to 2 per household, blah, blah, blah. Nothing was different about it. It went the exact same way, and it's going to keep happening. I mean, you know, they upped the price on Bowman Sapphire. That product, if it came out last year, would be $50. It was 150 this year. They're looking to make more money off that. They changed the odds of, you know, the parallel odds on it, which means they printed more last minute to, you know, basically, you know, up their return. And, you know, I think they have, you know, the wherewithal to capitalize on the card popularity, but they're not fixing some of the core issues. One being the website, that is allowing, you know, bots to come in and push
I mean,
people
it's
out
a
that are just trying to
horrible,
get a couple
it's a horrible
boxes.
site.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No.
it's terrible for a company that, I mean, if you just do the math, the revenue math on Topps 2020 alone, the numbers are staggering of what size company Topps actually is. I mean, they've
Right.
got to be close to $1 billion company, and they've got a website. My company's website that I made is better than Topps, and
Yeah.
that says something.
Yeah. And, you know, they definitely need to invest some time and some money into their website to fix those issues.
Like cyber threats, there are companies out there that can block against penetration like that. I mean, and Gary said the same thing. And now you've had two of the guys who have the most to lose, I guess, by making enemies with Topps or Panini, who have now come out vocally and said, you guys need to fix the way that you're doing business, at least from the site. I mean, it's sad, if anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wouldn't take that much, you know, it would take a little time. The site would have to be down for a while. They'd have to kind of fix the way they're doing things. But, you know, their website is what, 5% of their, you know, what they do. I mean, you know, they'd still be able to put out their normal releases, their hobby boxes, their retail stuff. Yeah. And it's just, it's brutal. And I don't blame the people that use bots. Like I said, I know I'll probably get some, you know, some flack for that, and it's whatever. You know, if I know a lot of people that, you know, flip shoes, they flip, you know, like sneakers and stuff like that. And it's no different. You know, if you saw an opportunity to make some money and there's nothing illegal about it, knock yourself out. You know, it's up to the company to make it a fair playing field for everybody. And, you know, Topps is printing, you know, pieces of paper with ink on them. And they're just, you know, counting their money as it flows in. They can put a little bit of that into fixing the website.
Well, and Gary said the same thing. He's like, you know, if you're going to sit here and try and control people, you're fighting the wrong battle. You have to start at the top. The people are going to do what they're going to do to try and say, all right, guys, everybody play fair. You know, we can do what we want to do as a hobby and try and, you know, tell those people, hey, you know, it's not fair. Or, hey, don't go clear a shelf at Target and take every single box on the shelf. You know what's going to happen? People are like,
fix the system. Fix the system.
I don't care, and I'm going to do that.
Yeah. If I walked into a Target, not that I ever do, because I know it's kind of a waste of time in Orange County because all of them get wiped. But if I walked into a Target and they had a shelf full of Bowman Mega boxes, I'm buying every damn last one of them. And I don't care what you think about it, because those boxes are $38 and I just got them for 20.
Yep.
Like, fix the way that you do business, not blame the person that takes advantage of that system. So I don't know what the answer is with retail. I don't know what the answer is. Well, the answer with the website is fixing the website. I don't know what the answer is for retail necessarily. I see some targets that say, minimum or maximum 3 per person, or
Yeah.
whatever else. But at the end of the day, like if you go up to the checkout, eh, what employee is
I,
really going to care?
yeah, I
Um,
think that there's things though, and we were talking about Project 2020 and the print runs. I mean, I think what you could have done at least is like 5 max per person, and then it's like, you sure people can go out of their way to make additional accounts, but maybe if you just make it a little bit difficult for people, at least if you say just have a little tiny sign, 2 per person. I don't know, maybe 8 out of 10 people, maybe 5 out of 10 people, maybe 3 out of 10 people listen, but you're at least making a dent. But I think at this point,
yeah,
there's not much being done across the board, and it's sad. And I think it gets a lot of fingers being pointed because there
yeah,
is a lot of
yeah.
money in this.
And fingers get pointed at, the people that are kind of taking advantage of it, because, nobody can really, I could tweet at Target, nothing's going to happen. But I could tweet at somebody that's showing off their, cart full of mega boxes, and, I can shame them. But at the end of the
Although
day,
if you
it's
tag Target, they may be like, "Awesome, looks like a great
right,
purchase."
right, yeah. And
Yeah.
it kind of goes back to the whole eBay thing. Like Target doesn't. That's pennies for Target trading cards. They're not worried about it. Somebody put up a 2 per minimum, 3 or per max. And somebody said something funny the other day. They're like, "Yeah, I just went to self checkout." In that case, like,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's not going to be in the system. It's the Excel rep or somebody put up that
sure,
sign.
not everybody has not everybody has a frequent purchase card that can track that stuff. And you come back 20 minutes later, they're not going to recognize you. And they're dealing with so many people over and over again every day. But yeah, I think there's a lot of conversations that need to be had, and I think there's definitely ways to improve a lot of aspects. But just constantly pointing fingers at everybody, and like you said, old man yelling at cloud. Uh, I don't think that's ever going to really get anything done. And people say, well, what's it going to take for Tops to fix it? It's going to take you not buying it. That's the only thing that's going to change. I didn't even try to get Bowman Sapphire on the website. I knew exactly what was going to happen. I'd done it 3 times before. I figured if I did it a 4th time, I'd just be an idiot. So I didn't even go on the website. And,
Yeah.
and as long as if people stop buying the products that they're so upset with, maybe some change will happen. But until then, you know, like I said, Tops is too busy counting their money. I don't know.
It's not going in that direction right now of
Yeah.
stopping,
Yeah.
especially
If
with
I was
sports
sitting
coming
over
back.
here and I couldn't count the money fast enough, like, why would I change anything? It's working, that's a business model. You change when your revenue starts going down, and that's certainly not happening for Tops. So,
All
we'll
right,
see what happens.
Phil, last question for you here.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, do you think you'll be better remembered as a Major League Baseball player who won a World Series, or the guy whose hands we see on Phil's pulls?
Oh man, part of me hopes that it's for my playing career, but uh, yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, basically, the only thing I can change right now is the card stuff. So if I do a good enough job, hopefully, I'll be more remembered for that. I really don't care. It's fun. At the end of the day, like I genuinely enjoy this hobby, as I think Gary does as well. And unfortunately, like we talked about, there's people out there that always want to look for the negative. And as much as it bugs me, I just try to stay positive, move on, do what I can do, and hopefully have a positive influence on somebody, or make somebody's collecting more enjoyable, or have a video to watch. That's really all I want to do, and talk about cards. And if people want to think that I'm pumping and dumping, or it's just, yeah, I just can't stand it. So I just try to stay as positive as I can, do everything that I want to do with the YouTube channel, with breaking, with supporting breakers that I enjoy watching, and then just leave all the negativity down in the sewer where it belongs. And if I'm better remembered for being a YouTuber, that's cool too.
Right on. Well, Phil Hughes, thank you for joining me. This was another episode of Just Another Card Show. Till next time, peace.